Chapter 1. Cookup goes for sale in a multi-million-dollar deal. The dating app for food enthusiasts, also called Tinder for foodies, is seeing a change in its ownership. With a humble beginning in 2010, the service with an app and website now boasts of having more than 55 million users who are finding suitable mates worldwide while enjoying their love for food. If you are interested in food and dating, chances are you are already registered on Cookup that is now being bought by MSG Network. Owning more than 5 cooking and lifestyle channels, MSG Network is now the proud owner of Cookup, which it believes will prove to be a valuable addition to its portfolio. Janet Crane, founder and owner of Cookup, is being paid a whopping $40 million for this deal. 30-year-old Janet was already a billionaire when she started this food dating network. Like many of her previous business ventures, Cookup also added millions to her bank account and net worth, making her one of the youngest billionaires in the world. And after this deal, the world is dying with the anticipation of what Janet will bring next, that many economic pundits have already started calling the next big thing. Janet was smiling while reading the article on her laptop. This was not the first article about her. She had been featured in several articles in numerous publications before. Being an African-American woman under 35 has made her a subject that was widely discussed in many circles of the elite business class all over the world. But Janet read every article and piece about her with the same curiosity and thrill. Knowing that people knew who she is and what she does made her proud of herself. But this moment was interrupted by a phone call. Janet looked at her phone screen. It was her personal assistant, Kitty. "What would I do without you, Kitty?" Janet said with a smile. "Somebody is in a good mood today. I'm going to be $40 million richer. I deserve to be happy." "Really? You are happy because you are getting more money?" "Why else do you think?" Janet said playfully. "You don't care about money. I bet you are reading one of the articles about today's deal." Janet could not help but laugh at how right Kitty was. "Tell me," Kitty further asked, "how many times have you read that same article? Did you call me to piss on my parade?" Janet tried to control her laughter. "No, I called to remind you that you still own Cookup. The deal goes down in 2 hours, so you better haul your ass to your lawyer's office." "I know. I will be there in an hour." "We are waiting for you here," Kitty replied. "You are already there? Is Rebecca with you?" Janet started getting up from her bed. "Janet, I am offended!" Rebecca's voice jumped out of the phone's speaker, and Janet again started laughing. "What are you two talking about behind my back? Why don't you come here and find out for yourself?" Rebecca replied without revealing anything. It made it sound more mysterious. "All right, I will be there in an hour," Janet said, taking her clothes off as she stepped into the bathroom. "Great! Kitty and I will grab some breakfast then." "Sounds awesome!" Kitty welcomed Rebecca's plan. "See you there then." Janet disconnected the call and turned on the shower. "So what next?" Rebecca looked at Janet with several questions in her eyes. Janet realized that not just Rebecca, but even Kitty was looking at her. "Are you guys serious? I am yet to sell this one. There is no next yet." Janet replied with a mysterious smile. She could understand why Rebecca would do that, but she did not expect it from Kitty. "I understand her, but why are you looking at me like this? You know I have not planned anything." "That is not good," Rebecca interrupted. "If that is true, then you need to come up with a new plan as soon as possible." Janet knew Rebecca was right, but she was yet to find her next big thing that many analysts were dying to see. She had a reputation in the market. The three of them were really good friends who helped each other. Janet was the mastermind behind all the strategies and decision. Rebecca helped her with all the legal work and connecting with the required people. Kitty, on the other hand, was a mistress of many trades. She was Janet's personal assistant, secret keeper, best friend, and trusted advisor. Unlike most of the girls of her age, Kitty was quite sharp and had proved many times how useful she was to Janet. Janet valued Kitty and her opinions, and so she was looking at her anxiously, waiting for what she would say to Rebecca. And Kitty replied after a long pause, "She is still confused. There is no idea yet. What is the confusion? Rebecca asked Janet, who was clearly trying to avoid this conversation. Janet did not say anything, but just shrugged. It's not a personal thing, Jan, Rebecca reminded her. It's business. You need to talk about it. Janet could not argue, for Rebecca was right. Her decision or indecision was going to affect many people, direct or indirectly. And so Rebecca decided to be honest about it. I don't know, she said, looking at Rebecca and Kitty. I am still trying to figure out that big idea. I have thought of so many ideas, but every single one of them has been taken already. Janet finally concluded. Seems like I am running out of ideas. What else were you expecting? Janet had told her exactly what the problem was, but Rebecca was probably expecting a different answer. I thought maybe you did not want to continue anymore, Rebecca replied. I thought maybe you were thinking of settling down and having a family. Kitty burst into a laughter on hearing this, making Rebecca chuckle. What is wrong with that? Janet looked at Rebecca, and suddenly the laughter stopped. Rebecca's smile vanished, and a frown appeared in its place. What do you mean, what is wrong with it? Name 3 African-American women who are worth more than $1 billion and have a family. Janet was stumped. She tried to come up with names or faces that could fit Rebecca's criteria, but it was all a big blank. And suddenly, she realized that there were no women who had both a family and $1 billion that they earned on their own. See? Rebecca was perhaps reading Janet's mind. There is a reason why you could not give me even 1 name, let alone 3. And after a dramatic pause, Rebecca revealed the reason. Because there are no women who have both a family and $1 billion of their own. She was echoing exactly what was going on in Janet's mind. But then Janet remembered that this discussion had nothing to do with her situation. I get it, but I was not thinking of settling down. Oh, thank God, Rebecca heaved a sigh of relief. I would hate to lose my biggest client. Kitty, who was silent during all this, finally spoke up. Can we come back to the original discussion? We need to come up with the next big idea. Or should I say, Janet needs to come up with the next big idea. Rebecca and Janet realized Kitty was right. That is not a problem. If somebody is already working on a good idea, we can buy it from them. Rebecca proposed a simple solution. Janet wanted to come up with something that she could call her own. Cook-up and the ideas prior to that were her brainchild, and so buying an idea seemed a little odd to her. But at the moment, it felt like the right thing to do. However, she looked at Kitty for her approval. I think it's a great idea. I can look for some small-scale startups with nice concepts and we can figure out which one we want to buy out. Awesome! Rebecca exclaimed. Get on it today! Janet did not want to get into an argument today. She was feeling on top of the world and did not want anybody or anything to change that. But to her, it seemed like Rebecca was hell-bent on ruining her day. Brandon McCarthy, a middle-aged man, entered the room with a team of lawyers behind him. How are you doing today? He glanced at Janet with a warm smile, and she grabbed his hand like a lifeline. I am doing great, Brandon. How about you? She asked, shaking his hand. Well, I am here to take your company and make you even richer. The man was both honest and funny. Let's do it then. Janet did not want to waste any time. The lawyers took their seat and the procedure began. Sitting together, Janet and Brandon signed papers after papers, listening and nodding to all the voices that explained the paperwork to them. It took around 5 minutes for them to sign every paper that was required, and then finally Brandon offered his hand to Janet. It was a pleasure, Janet, he said with a smile on his handsome face. Janet confidently took his hand and said, likewise. She was now $40 million richer. And then, the conference room turned into a small party venue. Champagne was served and people talked and laughed. Everybody was happy. You should be happy. Why don't you seem happy? Kitty could not understand why Janet did not seem happy. You now have enough money to live a luxurious life without doing a thing. But Janet did not want to spend her life without doing anything. She liked creating things, and it gave her immense pleasure when her ideas grew big and popular. Yes, She had sold another one of her ideas today, but now she was out of them. Her mind was not able to come up with another great idea that was not already out there. And what Rebecca suggested to her today seemed like sacrilege. For Janet, originality was something she held very dear and pious. "Do you really think we should buy somebody else's idea?" She opened herself before Kitty. "Why not? Somebody just bought your idea." "Yeah, I sold it to him. I did not take somebody's idea with my money." "What difference does it make? It's just like buying anything else. You find one that you really like and you pay for it." Janet saw the logic in Kitty's argument, but she was not ready to accept that she now had to buy an idea. It made her feel like a lesser person. "I don't want to do it. I want to come up with my own idea." She made herself clear. "Then do it," Kitty replied. "Who is stopping you?" Confused, Janet kept staring at Kitty. "Listen, you can still come up with a great idea." Kitty was able to read her face. "But we need to have a plan B." Janet agreed with Kitty, and so she decided not to punish herself over this issue anymore. At least, not for today. And right now you deserve a holiday. Maybe it will help you in coming up with something. Janet could see herself bathing in the sun at a beach. "I agree. Let's book a flight right now." Jumping at the idea like an excited child. "All right," Kitty replied. "Where do you want to go?" "Surprise me," Janet replied with a smile. "And don't forget to include yourself. Both of us will be there together." "As you say, boss," Kitty smiled. Janet was suddenly feeling relaxed. She was trying to think where Kitty is going to take her for this holiday. Janet was in for a shock when she found out that they were going to India. They were at the airport and Janet had just found out about her destination by seeing their tickets. "What were you thinking?" she rhetorically asked Kitty. "I thought you would pick some place where we would be alone." "Trust me, we will be alone." "Have you forgotten what it was like when we went there 2 years ago?" Janet reminded Kitty, who seemed surprisingly calm and confident. "It was like a never-ending festival. There were so many people. I need reclusiveness to think. I cannot think with so many people all around me. Would you shut up and just trust me on this?" Kitty stopped Janet. "I know what you need, and you will love me for this." Janet had no clue what Kitty was talking about. She checked their tickets, making sure that she did not have the wrong ticket by any accident. Both of them were for Chennai. "Just relax, all right? I got this," Kitty said with a mysterious smile. Janet decided not to argue with her anymore, and so just stopped talking altogether. Both of them boarded the flight and took off to the land of call centers and spices. Janet was surprised to see the Chennai airport. It was much bigger and fancier than she had remembered. The last time she was here, the airport seemed like it was stuck in the 90s. But now it was completely changed. It looked like any other major American airport. "It has changed so much. I don't remember it like this at all." Janet was totally impressed. Together, they got out of the airport and found their escort waiting for them. A beautiful town car took them to a lavish hotel with a scenic background. "Really? You brought us to a hotel in India? What was wrong with the hotels back at home?" Janet had an idea that this was not their real destination. She could sense that Kitty's real plan was yet to unfold before her, and Kitty remained mysteriously quiet. They checked into the hotel and entered their beautiful room. But when Janet started to settle in, Kitty broke the news. "Don't unpack, we have another flight at 1 a.m. "Where are we going now?" Janet asked curiously. "You will see," Kitty replied while getting into a bath. "You are not taking me to a snowy mountain, are you? To meet a mystic and unlocking my mind and spirit." "Trust me," Kitty replied with her eyes closed. "This will be better than that. Much better." Janet tried to ask Kitty another set of questions, but then she thought it was better to spend her time sleeping instead. "I am going to sleep," she declared and crashed into her bed. At around 11 p.m., they both left the hotel and reached the airport. "Come on, tell me," Janet asked, this time being impatient. "Where are we going? I cannot take this scavenger hunt anymore." "Here." Kitty handed Janet their tickets. Janet quickly took the tickets from her hands and started reading. Port Blair. What is this place? A small city in the islands, away from civilization. So much that the British used it as a prison for the most dreaded political prisoners during the Indian freedom struggle. And that is where we are going? To a prison made by the British? Janet wanted to confirm. Well, we will not stay in Port Blair, but yes, we will stay in those islands. What are they called? The islands? Janet asked. Andamans. Sounds good. Janet looked at her ticket. An hour later, both of them boarded another flight that landed on a small airstrip in Port Blair. The morning sun was still rising over the horizon, and Janet could feel the cool ocean breeze. The airport here reminded her of those Hollywood movies from the 80s. Wow, what is this place? Janet could see that the glorious 80s never left this part of the world. Unlike the airport in Chennai, this airport had no cab driver or any other person trying to aggressively lure them into their vehicle. This was a refreshing change for Janet. Kitty was reading Janet's face while she looked around. All right, I am impressed. Now what? Now, we have a ferry to catch. Kitty checked her watch. Within half an hour, the two of them were standing at a port where they saw two small passenger ships. A tall man with a fair complexion greeted them with a warm smile. Hello, are you Miss Kitty? Yes, and this is Janet, Kitty replied. The man joined his hands in the traditional Indian manner of greeting. Namaste. I am Ravi, and your ferry is waiting for you. Shall we leave? Please lead the way, Ravi, Kitty replied with a smile. Ravi took them to a smaller boat that was waiting only for them. Janet and Kitty were the only passengers. Ravi showed them to their gorgeous cabin. I hope you will find it comfortable. Please make sure to wear your life jackets if you decide to get out of your cabin. It's for your safety. Leaving the port, the boat soon reached in the middle of the ocean. Janet and Kitty got out of the cabin and looked around. In one direction, they could see tiny mountains at a great distance, while on the other hand, all they saw was water. An hour later, the boat reached an island and Ravi appeared again. We have reached the Neil Island. Hope your trip was comfortable. It was. Thank you, Ravi. Janet smiled as she got off the boat. A cab was waiting at the port to pick them up. On their way to the hotel, Janet was surprised to see this new side of India where she hardly saw people on the road. The small houses scattered all over the island told her that this place was still far away from the modern world. You think you can think here? Kitty asked Janet with a smile. I hope this is not too crowded for you. Now you are just bragging. Janet smiled, showing her appreciation. Both of them shared a chuckle. The cab stopped outside a hotel that seemed too big for this kind of island. After checking in, Janet and Kitty entered their beautiful room that was overlooking the beach. Now you can unpack. We are here for at least 15 days, Kitty told Janet. But Janet did not want to do anything right now. The only thing she wanted to do was stand by the beach and stare at it. This is perfect, she said, feeling the breeze in her hair. Her eyes tried to find a single soul on the beach, but failed. It was completely empty. The water was blue like it was painted, and the sand was shining with the sunlight. You like it? Kitty asked, standing behind Janet. I love it. Janet did not hold back her admiration for this place. Kitty felt a little proud of herself in that moment. Have some rest. We can start thinking tomorrow, Kitty said while she jumped into the bed. I'm going to sleep now. Janet stayed right there and stared at the ocean in front of her. All her apprehensions and doubts slowly washed away with the sound of the breaking waves. Jet lag and exhaustion made Janet and Kitty sleep the whole day. They woke up in the middle of the night and found out that the beach now had signs of life. From the distance, they could see and hear people laughing and singing. Few bonfires were lighting up at the various spots all over the beach. Couples, singles, and small groups were enjoying the moonlight that showered the clean waters. Let's go there, Janet suggested, but Kitty seemed tired. You go, I will stay here. Suit yourself, Janet said, stepping out on the beach. She could see the group that was closest to her. Some people were sitting together, laughing and talking. When Janet came closer, they welcomed her with their smiles. "Hello there," one of them said. "Come, join us." Encouraged by the warmth of the fire and kind words, Janet joined the group. The man who invited her introduced himself and the rest of the group. "I am Ted, and here are Bilal, Elena, Joseph, and Rose." Janet looked at all of the people in the group. Ted was a tall, blonde man with a clear American accent. Bilal was a young man with sharp looks and curly hair. Elena was a black woman with beautiful eyes and lips. Joseph made it clear with his greeting that he was a Frenchman, while Rose seemed from Eastern Europe. "I am Janet." She introduced herself to the group, who lovingly welcomed her. "So, Janet, where are you from?" Joseph asked her with his French accent. "New York." "Yeah, what do you do?" "Joseph!" Elena stopped Joseph as soon as he asked his question. "Remember the rules. No talks about work." Confused, Janet looked around when Ted solved this mystery for her. "This is your first time here, I presume?" Janet nodded in approval. "We come here quite often and have a rule that we don't talk about work," Ted concluded. "You see, we come here to forget work, and that's how it should be. No work. You are what you are here, and not what you are in your professional life." Rose made it simpler. "Wow!" Janet was surprised at this concept. "So you guys do not know what you do?" "Nope," Bilal replied with a smile. "But we guess." Bilal's smile sprouted several similar grins in the group. "There is no harm in guessing," Rose replied. "You can just be yourself and enjoy your time here," Rose told Janet. Janet sat down among her new friends and looked around herself. Several small groups of people who did not care about who they really were and what they do. All they wanted was to live in the moment. She instantly fell in love with this idea. All of them kept talking the whole night, and soon the sun was starting to spread its fuzzy light all over the beach. "Good morning," Joseph said, looking around. "All right, vampires, it's time to go back to bed." "So we meet only at night?" Janet asked. "We all are jet-lagged and so spend our time together until our biological clock is used to the local time," Ted explained while getting up. He patted his bottom to clear the sand and stood straight. "This will continue for a few days, a week tops, and then we will be used to the local time. I will catch you guys later," Rose said while walking away. The group disbanded after a small session of goodbye, and Janet was left standing there. She liked this new society with no burden of formal courtesy or chivalry. "I think I will like it here," Janet said to herself. Walking back into her room, Janet saw Kitty was still in her bed. After taking a shower, Janet got into her bed as well and pulled the sheets over her head. "What is the time?" She suddenly heard Kitty's voice. As she looked out of the sheet, she found Kitty waking up. "Good morning," Kitty said with a smile. "How the hell you are not jet-lagged?" "'Cause I am freaking awesome," was Kitty's reply. Janet kept staring at Kitty's smiling face with awe, and then she gave up. "I am going to sleep." "Suit yourself," Kitty said, getting out of the bed.
Chapter 2. Days later, finally, Janet's body had accustomed to the local time and climate. Now the bonfires by the beach stayed only till midnight, and the group would go the other islands in the day. But most of the time, all of them would just sit by themselves and relax. After all, spending time with themselves was the reason why most of them were here. When Janet came back from the bonfire one night, Kitty dropped a small folder in front of her. "What is this?" Janet asked, looking at the folder and then Kitty's face. "This is why we came here," Kitty replied. Janet opened the folder and found several files inside. She opened the first file and realized what it was. "Oh, come on! Do we really need to do this right now?" she cried. "Oh, yes, it's about damn time." Kitty was stern. The folder contained files with the details of several startup ideas that Kitty and Rebecca had collated before the trip. These ideas were shortlisted by the two of them as the Plan B. Kitty had decided to go back from this trip with a solid idea, and this was her first step towards achieving her goal. We are going to read and discuss all these ideas and come up with the one you will be buying. But I am going to come up with an original idea that would be completely mine. Go ahead, but till the time you come up with something, we are going to read and discuss each and every one of these ideas. Kitty dropped a few files in Janet's lap. Both of them stared at each other for a few seconds before Janet finally gave in. All right, let's do it. She knew Kitty was not going to budge, and so she started reading the first file. Kitty joined her with a pen and notepad. Together, they started going through that big pile of files. Is this for real? Janet cried with disbelief. Are people really working on an app like this? What is it? Kitty looked away from her file. Haters, Janet started reading. This useful app tells you who has unfollowed you from your Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook pages. Let those haters know that you know. So basically, people are creating apps that would let people know who stopped following them on social media? Janet and Kitty looked at each other, and the haters file was thrown on the floor. Janet picked up another file and started reading. Directions. An app that lets you leave your own set of directions for various routes and places. Let your friends know the best way to reach a place and help many others discover a better route to reach there. What is that? I don't think I get it. Kitty expressed her confusion. It's like giving directions to reach a place over an app. Your friend can tell you how to reach a place via this app, and it will be there for the whole world to see. Janet explained, reading and understanding from the file. Don't we already have Google Maps for that? Kitty asked. Janet again read the file. They say sometimes Google Map cannot tell the right direction because the data is not available, but in this app, people can use their own knowledge as the data and help others. This is so ridiculous, Janet exclaimed after understanding the concept. I don't want to waste my time with this anymore. All right, I think I have a good one here. Listen to this. Kitty started reading from her file. Rate Money. It's an app that pays you for rating all kinds of businesses. You rate, we pay. Janet was a little intrigued. Tell me more. Kitty started reading again. Ratings are super important to businesses these days, for they can make or break them in the age of the internet. So for every rating you give to a business, that business will pay you. This way, you will get something in return by giving the businesses your valuable opinion. Sounds crude but interesting, Janet said while analyzing the idea in her head. Let's discuss this. Kitty started making notes while reading from the file. The businesses will pay you for your ratings. Yeah, you told me that already. But it's written again, Kitty said. Also, Janet suddenly had a question. Why would any business pay you to rate them? And how much are they going to pay for any rating? This could influence the kind of ratings the customer will give them. Suppose a restaurant that pays its customers more for a good ratings. How can you trust this app then? Well, they say that the ratings would always adhere to the central rating rate, fixed by the app developers. Janet chuckled. Trash this file. This is nonsense, but I think we can make something really nice out of it. And so Kitty threw that file on the floor as well. The two of them kept checking more and more files till they felt sleepy. The next morning, Janet met the group of her new friends in the tiki bar by the beach. You care for a swim? Joseph asked Janet as she joined them. Yeah, I guess. Good. Come then. Joseph finished his drink and started walking towards the ocean. Janet walked behind him but stopped when she saw Joseph taking all of his clothes off. In his birthday suit, the man jumped into the water, while Janet stood there watching him in awe. She then turned to the rest of the group behind and found them grinning and chuckling. What was that? Is this a nude beach? Janet tried to come up with explanations of what Joseph just did. Nope, Elena replied. He is just French. There are no nude beaches in India, Ted added. But Joseph is cool, and so we let him. You still want to join him? Bilal asked Janet with a naughty smile. I think I will stay here with you guys, thank you. Hey, Janet, why are you not in the water? Joseph called her, while Janet just waved instead of replying. Joseph soon forgot about her and lost himself in the waves. Janet got busy with the rest of the people at the tiki bar. "So, Janet, who is that beautiful friend of yours?" Bilal asked quite knowingly. "Ooh," Rose said with her drink. "Somebody is crushing hard." "So what? I am supposed to like people on holidays, aren't I?" Bilal justified himself. As the group teased Bilal, Janet came to his rescue. "It's all right. Her name is Kitty, and she is a wonderful girl." "What does she like?" Bilal asked, being more detail-oriented. "Well," Janet started thinking, "she is a sharp girl and likes smart people." Then Bilal has no chance. Ted cut Janet off in the middle. A wave of laughter overtook the group. Bilal just played along while Janet continued. She has an eye for detail and likes people who focus on their work and things around them, and she likes men with curly hair. Suddenly, Bilal's eyes grew wider and a smile danced on his lips. But then Ted patted his back, jokingly. "Too bad your curls are fake, Bill. You had a real shot here." Bilal laughed with the rest of the group. "Excuse me, can I have a mojito?" A deep voice grabbed Janet's attention. She found a tall man with wheatish complexion and broad shoulders standing behind her at the bar. The barkeep started working on the man's order while he looked around. His eyes met with Janet's, and a courteous smile appeared on his face. Janet replied with another smile as she looked at him. And when she turned back to her friends, all of them were looking at her with an open mouth. Making sure she was not seen by that tall, broad-shouldered dude, Elena mouthed, "Wow," to Janet. The group didn't do or say anything until the tall dude got his mojito and walked away. Janet's eyes followed him till he disappeared behind the hotel wall. "Tell me, Janet," Rose asked, "are you single? I am on a holiday with my friend. What do you think?" "Is she your special friend?" Rose asked. "No." Janet could sense what Rose was asking. "Then why didn't you talk to that mojito guy?" Janet tried to look for an answer in her head, but there was none. "I don't know. It happened too fast, I guess." "Oh, come on!" Ted jumped in. "The man was there till a mojito was conjured. How much more time do you need?" Janet knew they were right. "You know what? He is here with us. His room is around mine," Elena said. "Next time you see him, just talk to him." Janet did not see any reason to not talk to that handsome man. "Maybe it will start something exciting," she said to herself. And so she was ready to mingle with this tall, broad-shouldered man. The same evening, fate presented Janet with the next opportunity. The group was getting ready for their daily bonfire, and today Janet had brought Kitty out. Usually, Kitty did not like to go out and sit with these complete strangers, but today Janet had pleaded her to come along and meet her new friends. Unable to say no, Kitty succumbed to her best friend's pressure and was now standing beside this curly Middle Eastern man who strangely seemed attractive to her. But she kept her feelings to herself. "So, Kitty," Bilal asked, trying to sound casual, "where are you from?" "United States," Kitty replied without taking a moment. "I know that. I mean, where are you from in the United States?" Bilal tried again. "Washington, D.C." "Ooh, the capital!" Bilal exclaimed. Yeah," Kitty said without any emotion. An awkward pause filled the air as Bilal tried to come up with something to talk to her about. The group was noticing this, and it was amusing them. Janet gently nudged Kitty with her elbow, signaling her to talk to this cute guy who was interested in her. "Where are you from, Mr. Bilal?" "Dubai. I am from Dubai," Bilal replied as if he was waiting for her to ask this question. "Oh, it's a beautiful city. We were there just last year." "You like Dubai?" Bilal asked, being excited. "I guess. I like how it's rapidly growing. I mean, it used to be a desert not long ago, and now look at it. They created a snow park and an indoor beach, not to forget a man-made island in the middle of the ocean, in the shape of a tree. I think that's pretty amazing." Listening to so much praise for his town filled Bilal with joy and pride. "I am glad you liked it. I really am," he said with a big smile on his face. But then Kitty realized she was out of words, and the awkward silence took over the air again. Bilal could see Ted's face with his encouraging smile. "Would you like to walk with me on the beach? It's really beautiful at this time of the day." Bilal asked Kitty, who looked at Janet. Janet gave Kitty a subtle signal with a smile and a blink. "I guess," Kitty said, agreeing to Bilal's proposal, and soon the two of them were walking on the beach together. "Look at them. Two people from different corners of the earth trying to get to know each other," Rose exclaimed with admiration and love. Something in those words stirred Janet's brain, and suddenly she was not thinking about Kitty and Bilal anymore. Instead, the words said by Rose repeated in her head. Two people from different corners of the earth, trying to get to know each other. Soon the words started modifying themselves. Two people from different corners of the earth, getting to know each other. People from different corners of the world, knowing each other. And suddenly, Janet's train of thoughts was derailed with a sight that made her heart skip a beat. The tall, broad-shouldered man walked past her. "There he goes!" Elena exclaimed, looking at him. "Janet, go and talk to him." Janet's feet froze as she looked at that man walking away, but Rose grabbed her shoulders and gave her the energy to move along. "Don't let him disappear again. Go and talk to him." Before Janet could know, she was walking behind that man of mystery. Starting with slow paces, Janet then walked quickly, but without making much noise. And as she caught up with the man, she slowed her pace down to look normal and walked up to him. "Hey," she said very casually. "Hey," the man returned the greeting with a warm smile. "It's a beautiful evening," Janet said. "Certainly it is. I love this place." "You come here often?" "No, this is my first time, but I have been here for around a week. What about you?" "I am a first-timer here as well, but I am loving this place." Janet was now walking with this dude, and so it only seemed fair to exchange names. "I am Janet, by the way." The dude smiled and looked at her. "I am Marcin." "That a nice name. Where are you from?" "Krakow, Poland. You?" "New York, United States." The two kept walking by the beach when Marcin stopped. "You want to sit down, Janet?" Janet showed her agreement by nodding, and both of them sat down on the sand, facing the ocean. The moon grew bigger, coming higher in the sky, and soon the stars appeared all around the sky. "So what do you do, Janet?" Marcin asked. Janet was not expecting this question, but then she remembered that she was not with her group where talking about work was forbidden. She decided to play with the new rules. "I create new ideas and turn them into profitable businesses." "Nice! So you are both a businesswoman and creative person, I am guessing." Janet could only nod her head in embarrassment. "And what do you do?" Janet thought it was no harm in asking now when the rules have changed. "I help create policies for people living in and around Krakow." Janet tried to understand what that meant. Marcin could see that he had confused Janet, and so he explained himself further. "I am a politician," he said, chuckling. "So I help in making policies and legislation." "I see that now. But why did you tell it to me like you were a king of some sort?" "Because most people do not like politicians," Marcin replied. "And so I use this method to introduce them to my job. It makes them connect to me as a person first, rather than a politician." Janet found this approach both new and refreshing. Her nervousness had now dissolved, and she was talking freely to Marcin. Soon they were discussing the new emerging business trends in the West and their favorite TV shows, and with each topic and discussion, Janet was liking this man more and more. "So tell me, Janet, why did you come here?" Marcin asked when they ran out of things to discuss. Janet knew she could be honest with this man, and so she did not hold back. "I am trying to come up with a new idea for a business. My friends thinks I should buy somebody's idea and work on it, but I don't want to do that. Instead, I want to create something of my own and then work on it." "Yes, but the problem is that the clock is running against me. If I won't be able to come up with a new idea, I will have to buy one, and the time on this island is all I have." "You know what? I have somebody who can help you with this." Marcin jumped with joy. "Really?" "Yes, come with me. I will introduce you to him." Marcin got up and offered Janet his hand. She quickly grabbed his hand, and together they both walked back into the hotel. "I am not a creative person. I am more like an administrator. But he is a genius." Janet was already impressed by this person without even meeting him. Marcin was singing all kinds of praises for him while taking her to the room. Marcin knocked on the door, and another handsome man opened the door. As he saw Marcin at the door, a big smile ran on his lips, and he opened his arms wide to embrace him. Marcin hugged his friend, but Janet was in for a shock when they kissed each other passionately. It was not the first time she had seen a same-sex couple, but she was not expecting Marcin to not be interested in her. In a brief moment, Janet had her hopes and dreams shattered before her. "How was your walk?" the man asked Marcin after breaking the kiss. "Wonderful. And look, I made a new friend." Marcin looked at Janet, who suddenly remembered that she should stop staring and start smiling. "Janet, this is James, my partner. He is a genius," Marcin said, holding him tight in his arm. "What are you talking about?" James had no clue what Marcin and Janet were up to. "Janet is looking for a new idea, and I thought you would be the best person to help her." Janet was not ready for this. In her hopes and daydreams, she was holding hands with Marcin and kissing him under the moonlight. But now all she wanted to do was get out and not be the fly in the ointment. "I think I should come by later," she said while scratching her head. "Oh no, come, have a drink with us. You both can discuss your ideas. I love watching him work." Marcin left James to open wine. Janet decided to just let her feelings go and joined Marcin and James on their balcony. Hours and some wine glasses later, Janet forgot how shocked and upset she was on seeing Marcin with somebody else and became her usual self. Both the men enjoyed her company, and soon they digressed from their main subject of discussion. Instead of ideas, they discussed music, films, and the places they have seen. Later that night, Janet came back to her room with a smile and buzz. To her surprise, she did not find Kitty in the room. "At least one of us is getting some action, I hope," she said while falling into the bed. And before she knew it, Janet fell asleep. "It's late," Kitty said, looking at the waves under the moonlight. "Would you like to go back to your room?" Bilal was trying to hide his sorrow. He did not want for Kitty to go, but he was also not going to stop her. Both of them had finished 1.5 bottles of wine, and the bonfire that Bilal lit was almost dead. He knew it was getting late. "I want to go back, but not to my room," Kitty said, looking at Bilal. There was a short pause in their universe where they did not feel time moving any further. Bilal tried to realize if he had heard and understood this beautiful woman correctly. "Do you want to go someplace else then?" he asked innocently, with no ulterior motive or thought whatsoever. "How about your room?" Kitty made herself clear, and suddenly Bilal wanted to jump with excitement. But he kept quiet and stood up instead. He offered his hand to Kitty and helped her in getting up. Leaving the fire by the sand, both of them walked back to the hotel. Their feet felt light, but their hearts were pumping really fast. Bilal opened his room and entered after Kitty. After locking his room from inside, he turned to this gorgeous woman who leaned onto him and planted a deep kiss on his lips.
Oh no, this adult scene has been taken out and is exclusively available for Romancely Audio Velvet members. Check the description below to sign up. The love scene reference is The Billionaire's Fake Marriage, Chapter 2, Love Scene 1.
"What are you doing?" Janet checked the clock. "It's 11 a.m. and we are on a holiday. Put those files away. What do you want me to do then?" Kitty did not even look at Janet while answering. She was constantly writing something down in her notepad while reading files after files.
Chapter 3. Days later, Janet and Kitty returned to New York and started developing their idea. The holidays were over and now it was time to get back to work. After coming up with the idea, Janet felt refreshed and alive. Rebecca could see this change in Janet. "Looks like the holidays worked really well for you." Janet smiled. She knew it was right. But she also knew that it was Kitty who took her there, and so she deserved credit for this too. I finally know what I'm going to do next. I was dying to hear those words. Rebecca expressed her excitement and relief together. Right now, I just have the idea, and we need to work on it. Like really work on it. We need to decide how it is going to work, and the most important thing, what are we going to call it? Janet explained everything to Rebecca. Geez, are you expecting me to create the whole thing for you? What did you come up with during the holidays? Rebecca was confused on hearing about doing so much work. It's a service that brings people of different countries and cultures together, in a safe space. Kitty filled in Rebecca with the idea. Aren't there many dating sites already out there? Rebecca failed to see the uniqueness in the idea. How is it going to be different? Kitty looked at Janet with a smile. It was a signal for Janet to tell her what this idea really was. Rebecca, tell me, what was so unique about Cookup? Janet posed a question while leaning back in the chair. Rebecca knew this question was trickier than it seemed, and so she thought really hard before answering. Tinder for foodies. It was a place where people who shared the love of food could meet like-minded people in a safe space. At Cookup, there was nobody who would judge you whether you were a non-vegetarian or vegan. What you liked to eat was your personal preference and was respected by other members. Now imagine a similar safe space for people who would like to meet like-minded people from out of their world. Rebecca tried to understand the concept when Janet further elucidated. I want to change how people think of meeting new people. Right now, the best way to meet somebody that you might like is by going to either a bar or a dating event. What if you could meet anyone from the whole world without worrying about your safety? Rebecca could now see the spark in the idea. That's amazing! What we need to work on is how we are going to make people feel safe while they connect with other people using our service. Once we figure that out, they will take care of the rest themselves. Rebecca loved the idea. And we also need to come up with a name, Kitty added. Well, that's easy. How about... Rebecca strained her brain for a moment. Across borders, or beyond boundaries, or maybe... This was where Rebecca's creativity stopped. I think we will find the name on our own. Janet chuckled. Thank you, though, for those wonderful suggestions. Hey, you may laugh, but those names are simple and genius, Rebecca defended herself. The trio tried to come up with a name, but soon gave up. Let's just stop. I think it will come up naturally, Janet proclaimed, remembering how the names of her previous businesses came to her. But then Rebecca reminded her why coming up with a name quickly was important. Then it better come to you real fast because we need to get it registered. Gotta make sure that nobody grabs this before we do. I agree, but you cannot force inspiration to come. Janet made herself clear. Well then, let the inspiration know how critical the timing is, and she might decide to grace you with her presence. Then I shall pay her a visit as soon as possible, Janet said, getting up from the chair. Let's meet when I have a name. Janet was sitting in a chair, staring out of the window. She was trying really hard to come up with a name, but there was no name that stood out among the others. And so she kept looking out of the window, probably waiting for the name to appear in the sky. You need to get out, Kitty said from behind. What are you talking about? Janet turned around. You've been locked in your house for 2 days now. You need some fresh air to get some new ideas. Trust me. Go out and you will have a name in no time. Janet knew Kitty was right, but she was in no mood to get out. She knew that getting the right idea was not enough. An equally great name was very important for the thing to work. But it seemed as if she needed another holiday. I don't want to go out, Janet told Kitty quite honestly. How long are you going to sit here? I don't know. I feel like I have it in some dark corner of my mind. It's just that I am not able to put my finger on it. Kitty pulled out a chair and sat down in front of Janet. Jan, she said, holding her hand. Tell me, how did you get the idea for this service? By meeting Marcin and his boyfriend. Janet remembered the events of the holiday. No! You came up with the idea after you got out of your routine and met new people. That gave you the idea, not Martin or his boyfriend. Kitty was right. It was the new experience that opened Janet's brain and not that handsome Polish man. So I am asking you again to go out and meet new people. Do random things, get out of your head, and suddenly you will stumble upon a great name. I promise you. Kitty sounded quite convincing, but Janet did not want to move out of her house today. However, she also knew that Kitty was right. Sitting in her room, staring out of a looking glass was not going to help her in any way. Janet thought for a moment, and then she smiled. You are right, Kitty. I need to meet new people and talk to them. Kitty smiled, seeing her friend getting on the same page as hers. Awesome. So where do you want to go? Oh, I am not going out anywhere. See, I don't need to go out. All I need is to meet new people and talk to them. Kitty could not understand what Janet meant. Are you going to invite random strangers in your house then? Something like that, Janet said and got out of her chair. Confused, Kitty remained in her chair and saw Janet walking around. She picked up her laptop and sat down. Come here! Janet called Kitty to sit with her. Kitty pulled her chair beside Janet, watching her open the browser on her laptop and going to a chat site. The site was meant for strangers around the world to come and chat. Janet created a new account with a pseudo name and logged on. She headed into the first chat room she found in there, Singles Lounge. Hello, Janet typed in. One after another, several replies appeared in the form of greetings. Kitty saw Janet working her fingers on the keyboard rapidly. Is anybody available to help me in coming up with the name of a dating site? After a few seconds, 2 replies appeared below Janet's question. Sure. Why not? Janet then started explaining her idea but making sure not to reveal too much. Describe to me in one word, meeting your romantic partner from another country online. International Love by Pitbull. A link appeared below Janet's hint few seconds later. Janet knew this song, and so it made her chuckle. I was looking for something subtle, she typed again. Soulmate from Outer World. Another reply appeared. I am looking for just one word, she typed. Seconds went by and nobody replied before somebody typed, Dateline. Like Dateline, the news program? Janet wondered. No, like International Dateline. The responder started typing. It separates the world into various time zones. It's invisible but exists, like the love from a foreign country that you have not seen or maybe even heard of before. It's very much real, but you just cannot touch or feel it. It made Janet think. She really liked the idea, but Dateline was not only too familiar a name, but also a registered trademark. Sorry, it's registered, but I really like the concept, she typed. Well, at least we are getting somewhere, the responder typed. What the hell are you doing? Kitty asked her, reading the chats. You are going to tell them everything about your idea. Stop it! Just let me be. I think I have something here. Janet asked for some more time as she typed into the chat box. I really liked the idea of something that exists beyond your reach or grasp, but makes you yearn for it. Like a long-lost love that you crave to be with. I was also using the word date as a hook. You know, international dateline. And date. Like, will you be my date? The responder typed in. Janet could see the appeal, but the possibility of legal hassles kept her away from using this name. I love this name, but there could be some complications. Legally, she replied. Jan, that is enough. We need to stop this right now, Kitty reminded her. But Janet was enjoying this virtual brainstorming. This stranger was giving her a new perspective on how to come up with a name. However, she also knew that Kitty was right. Jan, get out of there, right now! This time Kitty was firm. But I am having so much fun, Janet pleaded like a child. Kitty knew Janet was never going to stop, and so she pulled the plug. With one swift move, she turned her laptop off. Are you out of your mind? You can't just go on telling random strangers over the internet about your next big idea. But Janet was not listening to Kitty. Now she was thinking of the oceans and the dateline. She could feel the yearning of that long love that she had not seen or touched before in her life. and it gave her goosebumps. "Are you okay?" Kitty asked, looking at Janet. "I think I got it," she replied with a smile. Kitty could see that Janet was staring into space without blinking, and there was a big smile on her face. Normally, it would have freaked out somebody who did not know Janet, but Kitty knew this face meant Janet was on the verge of a breakthrough. "Tell me," Kitty said, knowing Janet was going to drop a name any moment now. "You know, something that is beyond any boundary or control, where love can feel free and safe without any worry of any political or moral constraint." Janet looked at Kitty with a knowing smile. "Something like international waters?" Kitty replied after thinking for a few seconds. Janet smiled and looked into Kitty's eyes. "High seas," she said, and it hit Kitty right there. This name was perfect for their service. It represented everything their idea stood for. Janet had done it again. "High seas," Kitty thought. "I love it." "I know you do," Janet said with a big smile. Finally, they had an idea and a name. "I love it," Rebecca declared her love instantly after hearing the name. "Let me check if it's available and I will get it registered." "We already did. It's available and we have bought the domains, so all we need you to do is get it registered," Kitty told Rebecca. "Awesome! I will prepare the paperwork right away. What are you guys going to do now?" "We are going to set up a team that will take care of everything technical. I will get my team from Cookup to do this. I trust them blindly," Janet replied. "First, we need to come up with a marketing strategy and set up a back end. These two things have to be done simultaneously. After that, we can talk about creating the website and app. And once we are done with that, we will need to start advertising." Kitty already had it all figured out. "Remember, it's bigger than Cookup," Janet reminded Kitty. "This time we are going to launch it simultaneously in several countries." "Absolutely, and I know just the people for this job." Kitty knew her job quite well. Janet knew she could count on Kitty and Rebecca, and so she focused on how to get the service working. She discussed the idea with the developer team that helped her with Cookup. Together, they came up with a strategy to make meeting people from strange countries a breeze. It was both safe and fun, and just the way Janet had imagined it. The developers were now working to create a website and app that were interconnected. On the other hand, Kitty was busy with the marketing team trying to figure out how to get the service the best exposure all over the globe. The plan was to create a buzz among the public all over the world, as if something big is about to come their way. And after the hype has been generated, the service was to be launched like a big event. The marketing team suggested creating a short film to launch on social media with a love story that transcended geographical boundaries. Janet really liked the idea, and another team was formed to create a series of videos. "This is going to be amazing," Kitty said while looking at the briefs. Janet could see how excited she was. A beautiful girl was standing in the fields, looking around as if searching for something or somebody. A handsome man was in the mountains, roaming aimlessly before he stopped and looked into space. Together, both of them were separated by a thin boundary that was almost invisible. They were trapped in their two different worlds with their backs towards each other. And slowly they start turning around, feeling each other's presence. The moment their eyes met each other, they stood there frozen in the moment. Two people from different worlds finally meeting face to face. But then they realized that their worlds were different and impossible to meet. With a strong yearning in their heart and desire in their eyes, they tried to touch each other. But all they felt was an invisible border between themselves. The longing intensified, and so did the efforts. They tried to break the invisible separation using rocks in their hands. But all their efforts were futile, and they almost gave up looking into each other's eyes. And then, something happened. Their worlds started to change, and soon both of them were standing in one realm that was more beautiful than the worlds they came from. It was a world filled with warm light and soothing breeze touching their faces and hair. The ocean was visible all around them in its full glory. The two of them stood up and looked at each other. The invisible wall was not there anymore. They were now free to touch each other, and the first thing they did was to hold each other's hands. They walked closer and looked into each other's eyes. High seas appeared on the screen as the lovers went out of focus. A beautiful female voice read the name, High Seas, Love Without Boundaries. A small message appeared on the side of the screen saying, Available for download on iOS and Android. So what do you think? Kitty asked Janet. Both of them were sitting in front of a big screen, watching this short promotional video that was about to be launched on social media sites. Janet took some time to phrase her response and then said, I don't know. It felt a little too mushy. It resonates very well with our target demographics. Kitty informed Janet how this seemed to be the perfect video for their brand. I think I need some more time to say anything about this video. What else do you have? Janet said, massaging her eyes. Kitty took out a few images from a folder and showed them to Janet. These were the prints of the billboard and print ads that were about to be published all over the world. These prints were in several languages and had men and women of different ethnicities together. It was like almost every country was about to be invaded by high seas.
Chapter 4. It's not going to work like this. Kitty threw her iPad on the table. Frustrated, she was talking over the phone with the marketing head. What changed in 2 weeks? We were like the Hercules at the launch. What happened to the figures? The marketing head was not able to provide a satisfactory answer to Kitty, and so she disconnected the call after giving him a final ultimatum. It's your job to get us more members and to ensure they stay there using our service. So I want you to get on it right away and get more members registered on our servers. Janet, who was listening to this call, was aware of the fact that the numbers of new registrations had significantly dipped since their launch. Where they achieved a max number of 11 members registering with them per minute, now it had gone to 1 member in 8 hours. Though Janet did not say anything to her, Kitty could see how distressed she was. You please stop worrying. This is just a temporary snag and we will be all right. Janet did not reply, and it made Kitty more bothered. I am telling you, we will be fine. I did not say anything, Janet cried. That was the whole point. You always tell me what you are thinking, but these days you are keeping things to yourself. You really want to know what I am thinking? And suddenly Kitty wanted to take her words back, but it was too late. I have been thinking that this whole idea was a big mistake, and I should not have even touched it. Kitty just stood there without saying a word. Janet was venting her frustration, and she did not want to stop her. When we launched Cookup, we crossed 500,000 members in just a week. It's been over a week since the launch, and we still don't have even 100,000 members. Our website and app are getting less and less traffic each day, and so I am wondering what went wrong. Did something happen since the launch that is preventing people from joining us? Or maybe it was just a marketing hype that got people interested in our idea, because now I don't see people coming to us like they did during the launch. Janet finally stopped. So that is what I am thinking? Happy? Kitty was actually happy to see that Janet was finally letting it all out. All right, with that out of our way, let's try to figure out what we can do to get this thing back on track, Kitty said, gaining her composure back. She knew that yelling at each other was not going to do any good to the numbers. Janet was feeling a little better after venting her frustration out, but she was also feeling bad for yelling at Kitty. Yet she did not say anything and decided to just let things go. We need to know what is making people not join us. All the other dating services are getting more and more members each day. Then what is wrong with us? Maybe they don't like the way things are at High Seas? Janet suggested. Maybe they want to see the information about the people they like. No, it's not that. Even Tinder does not give out much information, but they are swiping it left and right 6 ways to Sunday. So what is wrong with us? After much thinking, none of them were able to put a finger on what could be the real cause. However, they did make a list of features that they think might be preventing users from joining them. All right, I need some rest. I will think about it in the morning, Kitty said, packing the documents up. You get some rest too, and we will continue this in the morning. Take care, Janet said as Kitty walked out of the apartment. After Kitty's departure, Janet finally opened that link she had saved in her reading list. It was a review of High Seas by a reputed website, and she did not want to open it in front of Kitty. All alone, Janet decided to finally read it despite Kitty's stern instructions of not reading any reviews. "We are just over a week young, and we should not worry about reviews yet," were Kitty's words to her. But now she had opened the link, and it was staring her right in the face. High Seas, the dating service that needs a lifeboat. Only a handful of events generated worldwide hype this year, and one of them was the global launch of an international dating service, High Seas. From the creative mind of Janet Crane, the young African-American billionaire whose last success, Cookup, another dating app for foodies, was sold for an undisclosed amount in the multi-millions, came another matchmaking service that aimed to bring people from different cultures and lands closer together. However, this latest brainchild of the Cookup founder is now seeming to be a flash in the pan. After an explosive launch, people are losing interest in the service. Neither the app nor the website is registering more than 5 members each day, and anybody in this business can tell you how horrifying these numbers are for a dating service. Though the marketing campaign of High Seas is still being fleshed out by its creators, it has started to lose its effect on people. The videos and billboards now do not attract as much attention as they did before the launch, probably because people do not find the service interesting. Though most of the industry is already calling High Seas a sinking ship, only a handful of analysts are reserving their judgment until the service gets at least a month old. Reviewers are citing many reasons behind the failure of the service, but one major feature that has been prominently flogged by the critics and users alike is the privacy of its users. High Seas does not let its users see any information about their persons of interest until they spend some time interacting with each other and doing some activities. This feature, according to many people, has delivered a major blow to the service's popularity. In today's age of fast food, people do not like to wait, and High Seas' forced privacy feature is making things difficult for itself. Maybe this is the way the service was designed, but it's proving fatal for the business. The majority of users registered as of now on High Seas is above 35 years of age. While most of the internet businesses and apps, especially dating, rely on young users, High Seas attracts seasoned people to its website, which could also create a problem in the long run. Though it's still too early to determine the real cause behind the tremendously low turnout for the service, it's pretty clear that popularity of High Seas before and around its launch was nothing but just a hype created by its marketing machinery. However, it's still surprising to see that the same marketing team is failing to deliver, and the speculations suggest a major change in the management. Whether you like High Seas or not, the following weeks are very crucial for the company's fate. Any further dip in the numbers would not only take the company down, but also the reputation of Janet Crane. Whatever the cause, it's high time for High Seas to come up with a rescue plan. Fuck! Janet exhaled, closing her laptop and leaned back in her chair. She knew how this review was going to be, and now she was regretting going against Kitty's advice to read it. The review did not try to analyze the root cause behind the failure of the service, but just made Janet more anxious by stating the obvious facts. Janet knew that in order to save her new company, she had to take some drastic steps, but nobody was telling her what those steps were. Everybody was telling her that there was a problem, but nobody could describe the problem to her. It was getting harder day by day to understand what was going wrong. One thing was clear, though: Janet was not going to change how the service worked. No matter how many articles criticized the forced privacy of the users, Janet was not going to take it off. It was the core concept of this service that was aimed to provide a sense of comfort and safety to its members. She remembered how she felt at the Neil Island when nobody in the group knew anything about each other. And Janet wanted her users to feel the same thing with her service. "I am not taking off the privacy," Janet said to herself, trying to figure out what else could be the reason for people turning their backs on her company. She knew there were worse dating services that were getting so many registration each day, But why were people not coming to her? Was she missing something obvious? Janet believed in the model of how the service works, and so she started thinking about the people related to it. Maybe I do need to change the marketing team, she thought. But then she also remembered that the same team got her trending worldwide before the launch. The team is good, she again thought, dropping the idea of firing anyone. Fuck this, I am going to sleep. Janet was tired, and so she crashed into her bed, deciding not to think about it anymore tonight. Kitty was getting ready to leave for work when an unknown number appeared on her cell phone. Hello? Kitty answered, buttoning her shirt. Hey, Kitty, this is Bilal. Remember me? The voice danced out of the phone, and suddenly, Kitty was smiling. Bilal? Of course I remember you, but I'm afraid this is a bad time. I am leaving for work. Actually, I called you regarding your work, Bilal replied. Kitty suddenly stopped doing everything. What do you mean? You were with your friend Janet when we met, and now I am seeing her name in these articles about her website High Seas. How are you guys holding up with these bad reviews piling on? Thanks for reminding us how bad we are doing, Kitty said, unapologetic, and suddenly Bilal realized his mistake. I am sorry, Kitty, I did not mean it like that. It's just that I decided to try the service myself and wanted to share my opinion with you. I thought maybe you'd like to have a fresh perspective. Kitty instantly saw the value of Bilal's opinion. Janet came up with the idea of High Seas to help people like herself and Bilal. She did not create this service for teenagers who were looking for a quick hookup. This service was created for people who had everything but companionship in their lives. Bilal told her exactly what she needed to hear. I am so glad you called, Bilal, Kitty thanked him. No problem. I just thought maybe you'd need some help. Yes, we need all the help we can get right now. And thank you so much. I guess you are in a hurry for your work. I will talk to you later, Kitty. Take care. Kitty could not believe it. The man was a godsend to tell her what was wrong with their action plan. But then Kitty quickly left her home. She reached Rebecca's office where she found Janet waiting with her. You won't believe who called me today, Kitty said, entering the office. Bilal. Who? Rebecca had no clue who this person was, but Janet was astonished. The prince? She said. Prince? A real prince? Rebecca was intrigued. How does she know a prince? Not just a real prince, but a handsome one, Janet filled in Rebecca. Wow, but how do you know a prince? Rebecca really wanted to know. Janet smiled, looking at Kitty knowingly, and this was enough for Rebecca to figure out. Get out! You made out with a prince? What does that entitle you to? At least a palace in his country. Also, where is he from? Dubai. He is from Dubai, Janet told her. Would you two shut up? There is something important that Bilal told me. Is he marrying you? Rebecca asked, chuckling, and it only made Kitty mad. She could see Kitty's nostrils flaring up. All right, I will zip it now. So tell us what it was. Rebecca finally piped down. Bilal tried our service and gave me his feedback, Kitty told them. We already have feedback from many of our users. How is that important? Janet asked. Janet remembered the evening when she came up with the concept of High Seas, and suddenly she realized what Kitty was trying to tell her. Oh shit! See? Kitty said. We have been doing it all wrong. Janet held her head. Somebody tell me what is going on here. Rebecca was feeling left out. Janet and Kitty took a moment to collect their wits before Janet started explaining it to Rebecca. I came up with this idea to help people get closer to each other despite their status and identities in the outside world. Most rich people are worried that people will pretend to fall in love with them only for their money. And so on our holiday, I met a group of these people who had a rule. Nobody was supposed to ask or tell who or what they were in the outside world. Nice, like a secret society of powerful friends. Rebecca was getting excited. Exactly! And that was the core concept behind this idea, to make people confident that people will like them for who they really are, and not because of how much money they have, Janet added into her explanation. Janet felt quite embarrassed to answer this. The problem is, We have been targeting the wrong demographics. We were going after college students, singles, and teenagers, while our idea is tailor-made for people who are filthy rich," Rebecca pointed out shamelessly. "Well, you make it sound like it's a bad thing, but yeah," Janet finally admitted. But now even Rebecca was able to see the power behind this idea. However, she also saw one major problem with it. But to succeed, any service needs more users, and if we are being elitist and selective, how are we going to, succeed? 2 ways, Janet answered. 1, the service is free right now, but we will start charging our users once we have enough of them. And 2, once people will know that the site is a place for rich and powerful people to mingle, everybody would want to be a part of this. It's like a private club being opened for anybody who can afford the admission fee. Ordinary people are going to line up to get in, Kitty said. So all we need to do is change our marketing strategy and boom! Rebecca got excited. Finally, they knew what was going to turn things around for them. But there is one more thing. Kitty stopped their celebration. What? Janet asked. When Bilal was telling me all this, I realized we were lacking something very important. Every working model needs a proof, and sadly we don't have any. So you mean we need a success story? 2 people from our service getting hitched together? Rebecca confirmed. Yes, but not necessarily married. Only coming together will be enough for us. We desperately need a success story to show our users how effective our service is. Kitty was right, and Janet and Rebecca could see why. Without a proof, all the promises made by High Seas were nothing but tall tales. But how do we make people fall in love with each other? Janet wondered. We pay them. Rebecca came back with an instant answer. No! Janet did not like it one bit. Are you crazy? What is the problem? We hire actors to act in the promotional video. Why can't we hire 2 people to fall in love with each other using our service? Rebecca questioned.
Chapter 5. Janet, Rebecca, and Kitty were sitting together, but not in an office. This was Janet's penthouse. Janet did not want to have this discussion anywhere else but her home. She was constantly thinking of ways to put this dreaded idea to rest. But Kitty and Rebecca were not budging. Look at it this way, Rebecca tried to convince Janet. These 2 people might actually fall in love with each other, and then it will be a wonderful thing. It's not a movie, Rebecca, Janet countered. We might ruin the lives of these 2 people. Have you thought of it this way? Hey, I am being positive, Rebecca defended herself. We need to do something or else we are doomed, Kitty said. Either talk about this idea or tell me a better one right now. Kitty waited for Janet or Rebecca to propose something else, but nobody broke the silence. So I am guessing we need to start discussing how we are going to do this. Janet did not argue with Kitty. In her heart, she had given up on changing Kitty and Rebecca's minds. Though she was on board, she did not want to provide any input to this scheme. It's easy, Rebecca said. We just need to get 2 willing participants and get them signed up. I will take care of the paperwork. Their contract will be ironclad. It's not about the contract. No money or lawsuit against them will be able to bring back our reputation if anything goes south, Janet reminded Rebecca. Hey, I know that. I'm just trying to do my job properly. Remember, it's a risk that we have to take. And it's not just your reputation. Even I am putting my neck and career on the line. Try to understand. Janet knew Rebecca was right. All 3 of them were taking a huge risk with this step. But was it necessary? Was this the only option they were left with? But how do we find our willing participants? Rebecca asked, to which Kitty answered, being a little hesitant. I might have a female candidate. Both Janet and Rebecca waited for her to reveal the identity of this person. Kitty was trying really hard not to say the name, but it had to be revealed. Janet, Kitty said. There was pin-drop silence in the room for a few seconds. What? Janet yelled. Kitty did not say anything, proving that the name was not a mistake. She had suggested Janet to do this. What are you thinking? Janet yelled again. Listen to me. Kitty tried to calm Janet down. I have a very sound reason behind this, and I am sure once you listen to me, even you will agree. Another awkward pause. What? Janet cried. Sorry, I thought you would keep yelling. I did not expect you to listen to me, sorry. Just tell me why you think I would be the best person to fraud my own company. But before Kitty could explain, Rebecca suddenly had an epiphany. That is brilliant! Fucking brilliant! You too? Janet said to Rebecca. Yes. Rebecca smiled. Think about it. We need somebody we can trust. It should be a person who would not try to blackmail us or reveal our secret. So who could be better than you? You will never even think of fucking your own company over. Rebecca then turned to Kitty. This was fucking brilliant, Kit. Kitty just smiled and nodded while Janet was not able to process this. First, she was told that her company needs a fraud couple to propagate a false love story. And now she was being asked to participate in this lie herself. I need a moment to take it in. Janet held her head while Rebecca and Kitty just stood there. So you are telling me that I need to pretend to be in love with somebody to save my company. And what about my pretend lover? What if he tries to blackmail me? As I said, it's a risk. But with your involvement, we reduce that risk by 50%. Rebecca crunched the numbers very quickly. Also, the story of how the founder discovered love using her own dating site will prove phenomenal. Kitty added her 2 cents to the discussion. It was all making sense to Janet now, but she was not able to commit herself to something like this. But when she weighed the pros and cons of this situation, it became clear that going ahead with this idea would benefit everybody. Who is going to be my pretend lover? Janet asked. This was a breakthrough for Rebecca and Kitty. They wanted to jump and high-five each other, but restrained themselves from doing anything. Well, we are going to start looking for suitable men. Tell me, what kind of men do you like? Rebecca said. How does it matter? The man needs to be trustworthy, not compatible, Janet said frustratingly. Actually, Kitty said, I have already shortlisted a guy. Wow. Rebecca was both shocked and impressed. You have thought this whole thing through, haven't you? Janet could not believe it. Kitty did not reply to Janet and showed a picture from her folder. It was a handsome blonde man with beautiful blue eyes and an enchanting smile. The London Eye was seen in the background. His name is Brian Watson, and my sources tell me he is a trustworthy guy. Janet and Rebecca took a good look at the picture. British? Janet asked, looking at Kitty. We are supposed to be an international dating site. An American citizen would not have worked. Besides, he was born in Prague and has lived in London most of his life. You did your research? Since when have you been planning this thing? Janet was wondering. Don't listen to her, Rebecca said to Kitty. You are awesome. If she fires you, I want you to come and work with me. Oh, you want her? Please be my guest. Take her. And then you will find out how controlling she is. She is supposed to be my personal assistant, but this woman governs my life like she is my mother, Janet yelled at Rebecca. It's no time for flattery. Just tell me if you like him or not. I have been told this man is going to keep his mouth shut. Kitty brought Janet back to the topic. Janet was staring at the picture. His blue eyes were jumping out of the photograph. Brian Watson. British, she said, looking at his face. Later that night, Kitty was in her bed. But she was not feeling sleepy. In fact, sleep was far away from her eyes. She was talking softly into her phone. Well, it doesn't matter if she likes it or not. It's really important to save her company, Bilal replied from the other side of the line. After a brief pause, Bilal asked Kitty, how did she like Brian? No idea. She said there was nothing to like. The man should be trustworthy and not likable. Oh, Brian is trustworthy. You can take my word for it. I have known him since my childhood and can vouch for him both personally and professionally. How did you guys know each other? My father sent me and my brothers to this fancy school in England. Brian was my classmate there. I was a scrawny kid and Brian saved my ass so many times from bullies. We became really good friends since then. Wow! Sounds like a story about two good friends who choose opposite paths in life. One of them becomes a cop while the other becomes a gangster. Kitty chuckled at her imagination. Which one would I be? The cop or the gangster? Bilal inquired. Well, you just said you were scrawny and Brian saved your ass. So the formula says you must become the cop. Brian, the brawler, will be more suited to become the gangster. Brian, a gangster? Bilal laughed. That guy has the kindest heart and upright morals. He cannot do wrong to anyone. Then why did he agree to do this? Kitty wondered. Technically, it's fraud. Because he is not hurting anybody by doing this. And also because I asked him to. There is absolutely nothing that we won't do for each other. We are more than brothers. Brian is a part of my family. He is the only Westerner who has the unrestricted access to the whole of our royal palace. My father treats him as one of his boys, and I get the same treatment when I am at his home. I so want to tell all this to Janet, but I can't. She's going to freak out. Why is that? Because she thinks Brian is doing it for the money. Brian does not need money. He has plenty of his own. His family is filthy rich. Like yours? Kitty asked naughtily. Well, not like mine, but he is substantially rich. Let me give you a hint, Bilal said in a playful voice. Brian can buy both Cook-Up and High Seas together right away if he wants to, and it's not going to make a dent in this wealth. Kitty was dumbstruck for a moment. Then why is he doing this? I mean, I understand your friendship clause, but how come he has so much time to do this kind of thing? You said it was not going to cost him professionally, Bilal reminded Kitty. He will be able to manage his business from the United States. Oh yes, we need somebody rich to prove that our site works. So if Brian is filthy rich, like you tell me, it's going to be wonderful. Kitty paused for a moment. I am just a little worried about Janet. I don't know how she will react after knowing all this. Who is going to tell her? I know Brian will keep his mouth shut. Bilal was confident in his friend. You don't know Janet like I do. That woman is a hound. She can smell secrets. I'm sure she will find out about it. It's better that I inform her before she realizes who Brian really is. But it will still take like a month of 2. So you have ample time to break the news to her. Yeah, I guess so, Kitty said. Then how about after you get Brian and Janet together, you and I go for a holiday? Bilal finally popped the question that was on the back of his mind for a long time. Hey, you can't blame a man for trying. You left Neil Island in a hurry. We did not get much time to spend with each other. You know what? Kitty said. Once we get Brian and Janet sorted out, and our numbers are up where we want them to be, you and I are taking some time off together. Now that is what I wanted to hear, Bilal laughed. So tell me, when is Brian going to be here? Kitty came back to the real conversation. Well, give it around a week. He is in Japan right now, so it might take him around 4 or 5 days to be back in London. All right. Just let me know when he is available for this, Kitty said. I have already talked to him about it, and we are meeting in London on Friday. The man is bored to death with work and needs some excitement. This will be perfect for him. I hope this works out for all of us. Kitty prayed over the phone. Insha'Allah, Bilal said. What does that mean? By God's will, Bilal explained. By God's will, Kitty said to herself. All right, show me. Janet sat down in a chair before a projector screen. Kitty and Rebecca sat down with her, turning the projector on. Brian's smiling face appeared on the screen. Brian Watson, age 29 years, born in Prague to a British father and a Czech mother. For most of his life, he has lived in London and keeps traveling around the world. The picture changed, and now Brian was seen in a rugby outfit. Soaked in his own sweat and rain, he was smiling with some scratches and bruises all over his face and body. He really likes rugby and cricket. No matter how busy he is, he always takes time for his sports. Also, coaches little children. The picture again changed, and Brian was seen scuba diving and skiing in 2 different photographs placed side by side. He is into adventure sports and is an expert swimmer. Scuba diving is like cycling to him. Is also in love with traveling, but does not like to travel like a tourist. Most of the places he goes to, he visits as a backpacker. has visited many countries all over the world. I think that is enough. Janet took the projector remote and turned it off. Hey, I was watching that. Rebecca did not like it a bit. I know what is going on here, Janet yelled. You are actually trying to sell him to me as a suitor. Well, guess what? Not going to happen.
Chapter 6. He is late, Janet said, checking her watch. He is not late. We are early, Kitty corrected her. But Janet was in no mood to listen to anybody's argument today. This morning she came prepared to dominate the playing field. For her, this was the moment when she would tell Brian Watson that she was the boss and he was just an employee. I don't care. When somebody gives you an appointment, you are supposed to show early, Janet argued. Let it be, Rebecca said, going through a magazine. He must be feeling so weird in this city. New York has that effect on outsiders. These two have no idea who he really is, Kitty thought. I think this venue is not right, Janet said, looking around. What is wrong with this place? Kitty was surprised, for Janet had always loved this fancy restaurant. This was one of the best and most expensive places in New York. Well, I am afraid this might be too much for him. I have been to London, and no restaurant there could match this one. What is your point? Kitty asked. He might feel a little out of place here, Janet chuckled. Kitty could see her friends behaving like bitchy high school girls who had no clue about how things actually work in the real world. But by now she had given up, leaving it all to fate. Now she just wanted all this to pass as soon as possible. Wait, is that him? Rebecca looked at the door. Kitty and Janet looked in Rebecca's direction, and there he was. A tall blonde man with an impressive built and gait, walking elegantly like a proud lion towards them. A waitress escorted Brian to the table where the three ladies were sitting. Good morning, Brian said in a cheerful British accent. I am Brian Watson. Rebecca was the first one to offer her hand. She shook his hand with a weird smile. Kitty could see she was under Brian's charm, but she could not blame her. Brian was one hell of a guy. So which one of you is Janet? Brian asked while sitting down. It's me, Janet said in a cold voice. And I prefer we call each other by our last names. Gosh, why is she being such a bitch? Kitty said to herself. I am sorry, I didn't mean to offend. It's just that in our arrangement. Brian looked around, making sure nobody heard him, and then lowered his voice. It would seem a bit odd if we will call each other Mr. Watson and Miss Crane. Kitty could see that this man came prepared. He knew more about this arrangement than Janet and Rebecca, and now Kitty was feeling bad for her friends. I guess you have a point. Janet agreed to Brian. So how do we begin? I was hoping you could tell me that. Brian smiled. I guess we all are aware of what both of us are expected to do in this arrangement. Yes, we are, Rebecca cut in. You are to be paid $1.5 million for 1 year until the termination of this arrangement, during which you will have to pose as Janet's lover. You cannot talk about this to anybody other than your lawyer, me, and Janet. Understood? Yup. Where do I sign? Brian said excitedly. Janet and Rebecca were surprised to see how calm and excited this man was. They were expecting him to get nervous and ask a lot of questions, but he was doing just the opposite. Have you done this before? Janet asked, looking at Brian suspiciously. What? Getting in fake relationships with rich women? Brian asked with a smile. I am afraid this is my first time. I hope my lack of experience will not disqualify me from this job. Kitty wanted to laugh, but she remained quiet. She was having more fun by just being a mute spectator. Janet and Rebecca's faces were worth all the hassle. The two of them were not able to understand how to deal with this man. Janet was all set to dominate this man, but he was playing with her and Rebecca like they were little children. Well, are we going to eat something or just discuss business? I don't know about you, but I have grown quite an appetite since I arrived in this city. Before any of the ladies were able to say anything, Brian raised his hand and voice. Excuse me, he said, in a soft yet commanding voice. Brian picked up the menu and started browsing. I would have a sauerkraut tart to begin with, and then we can come to the main course. He then looked at his female companions. Pardon me, ladies, where are my manners? Looking at the waitress, he signaled her to go to the ladies. Please take their order first. You now know what I want. The waitress waited for the ladies as they gaped at Brian. It's bad manners to keep your waiter waiting, Brian reminded them in a friendly tone. Coming out of the trance, the women ordered for themselves and the waitress left with a smile. So, with that out of our way, what else do we need to discuss today? Well, there is all that paperwork that we need you to sign, Rebecca said. I understand, but I also want to know what you expect from me. It would be very helpful to know what duties I will be fulfilling as your fake lover. I guess the basic requirements are self-implied, Rebecca explained, like public appearances, public display of affection. Janet cleared her throat loudly, interrupting Rebecca. Within a limit, you know. Just remember you are fake lovers and not real ones. I get it, Brian nodded. Also, you might need to appear on TV or radio shows with her. She is a pretty big deal here. Rebecca was now boasting. Oh yes, I read a bit about you. Brian looked at Janet. Your work is both wonderful and inspiring. Young women could learn so much from you. Janet was filled with a sudden joy. This stranger was complimenting her for doing what she does, something usually nobody did. Most of the people would talk about how much money she had earned or how many companies Janet had created and sold, but rarely somebody told her how important her work was. And suddenly, Brian did not seem that bad anymore to Janet. Now, pardon me if I offend anybody here, but I would like to know about my living and sleeping arrangements. This time, Janet decided to answer, and she did not sound cold like before. Instead, her voice had the warmth of a friend. Starting from today, you will move in with me in my penthouse. We will be sleeping in different rooms. This will continue until the end of this arrangement. Wonderful, Brian cheered. So when do we sign the papers? After lunch, Janet smiled. Brian replied with an equally warm smile, and together they waited for their meal to arrive. Meanwhile, Brian kept them busy with his trivia of the places he had been to. To her surprise, Kitty could see a sudden change in Janet's behavior. Where she wanted to show Brian who is the real boss, she was now talking to him like a friend. And Rebecca, well, she seemed like a fangirl who had just met her celebrity crush. Kitty could see how Rebecca stared at Brian without even blinking. The lunch arrived and Brian kept the ladies entertained. Everybody enjoyed the food and Brian's conversation. Janet even laughed at his jokes. All this time, Brian did not seem like he was making an effort to please Janet and her friends. He was a natural charmer. That was a delicious meal. Please pay our compliments to the chef, Brian said, placing his credit card in the bill folder. Hey, you don't need to pay for this meal. Janet tried to stop Brian, but he had already handed the bill into the waitress's hands. Please, he turned to Janet. You are going to pay me $1.5 million for this. The least I could do is pay this bill. Consider it a token of our friendship. Janet could tell this man was trouble. After the lunch, the team reached Janet's penthouse. This place is lovely. Brian paid his compliments, looking around. Thank you. Please make yourself comfortable. Janet took off her coat. Rebecca quickly pulled out her briefcase that contained all the documents. She started spreading them on the table before Brian. Brian checked the documents and found that they already had Janet's signatures. All we need are your signatures and we begin right away. Marvelous! Brian picked up a pen while reading the documents. This is a standard non-disclosure agreement. Rebecca started explaining the documents to Brian. It makes sure nobody talks about this arrangement outside this group. Understood. Brian signed on the papers before Rebecca could say another word. Would you like to discuss these documents with a lawyer? Janet asked. Oh, don't worry, I am a lawyer, Brian said, signing another document. Suddenly, the floor disappeared under Janet and Rebecca's feet. They did not know anything about this Englishman being a lawyer. Together, they looked at Kitty for an explanation. Fuck! Kitty said to herself as Janet and Rebecca's eyes pierced her soul. So what else? I guess you might have also prepared some sort of a liability contract. Brian's eyes searched for the said contract on the table. There it is. His sharp eyes picked up the right stack of paper. Janet did not like it a bit. This man was too smart for this arrangement, but they had already entered the arrangement by signing the non-disclosure agreement, and now it was too late to back off from this deal. Reading the liability agreement, Brian quickly signed both the copies. "This is some good paperwork. I tip my imaginary hat to you, madam," Brian complimented Rebecca as he looked at all the remaining paperwork on the table. "And what do we have here?" He started reading another document. "Prenuptial agreement? Smart. Though there is no possibility of us getting married, but this is smart." With another quick signatures, Brian moved on to the next set of papers. "Okay," he read. "So I will have to pay $3 million to you if I fail to follow the given instructions. Phew!" Janet was sure that Brian would try his best to get out of this one, but she was in for another shock. "All right, I hope this is the last one," Brian said while he signed the document. Janet, Rebecca, and Kitty were surprised to see Brian signing the last document without any opposition. "You did not have any problem with the last one? The one with $3 million fine?" Brian chuckled. "Nah, it's actually fair that you are protecting your interest, and I respect that." Janet heaved a sigh of relief. "But there was a problem in that contract. You forgot to define the instructions specifically. There are so many loopholes a smart man could take advantage of. So, in a way, that last one was kind of useless." With a fake smile, Janet turned to Rebecca, who had "fuck" written all over her face. Kitty, on the other hand, could see what this man was capable of. "So I believe we are lovers now, at least by this paperwork." Brian smiled at Janet. "Anything else?" Janet looked at Rebecca and Kitty and shrugged after they did not remind her of anything else. "Good. I am off to bed then. If you would please direct me to the room I am supposed to sleep in." Janet pointed towards one of the rooms. Brian stood up and smiled at all three of them. "Thank you, ladies. I shall see you after my nap. I will bring my stuff in the evening. Enjoy your afternoon." Nobody spoke a word until Brian entered the room and closed the door behind him. "What the fuck was that? I thought you said that the paperwork was airtight. He just laughed in our faces reading your last contract." Janet quietly burst out at Rebecca. "Sorry," was the only thing that Rebecca said.
Chapter 7. Bloody hell! Callum Holdsworth yelled as he accidentally spilled his drink on his coat. "Mate, you owe me another drink," he said to the barkeep. "What the hell are you talking about?" the barkeep asked. "I spilled my drink, so now you have to give me a new one." "And why would I do that?" the barkeep asked. "Because my name is Callum Holdsworth, and I am a reporter who investigates businesses and people. My investigations have shut down more than 20 businesses, and let me tell you a secret." He then leaned in to whisper into the barkeep's ears. "Not all of them deserve to be closed down. They only went out of the business because they pissed me off." The barkeep looked at Callum's intimidating face. The main door of the bar opened and Callum came out flying. He crashed on the road, followed by his coat and a notebook. "Fuck off! You are banned from this place!" the barkeep yelled from inside the bar. "Piss off, you little wanker!" Callum screamed while getting up. "I'm going to fuck your business up." But there was nobody listening to him, and so Callum decided to move on. He bent down to pick up his coat and notepad when he noticed something. A tabloid front page with Janet and Brian's picture. High Seas founder found love using her own dating site. Would you look at that? A dating site owner found love in a British bloke. Isn't that convenient? And suddenly, his expression turned grim. Too bloody convenient. Callum laughed while he pocketed that tabloid front page and walked away from the bar. Janet woke up with jackhammers running over her head. Fuck! She knew she should not have had that much alcohol. "You okay?" Brian asked, sitting down beside her. Here, drink this. It will help. He handed her a tea that had no milk, no sugar, and excessive amount of lemon. What is this? Janet could not take the drink after just one sip. It's an age-old hangover cure. We use it in England. I can't drink this. It will give me another hangover, Janet pleaded to get rid of that potion. Fine, suit yourself. Brian put the drink away. And then Janet remembered something else. Though she was not able to remember exactly what she said to him, she knew that she embarrassed herself when she was drunk. Did I say something to you while I was drunk? Brian smiled mysteriously. You don't remember? Oh shit, I must have made a fool out of myself. Janet repented, holding her aching head. Don't worry, it was nothing embarrassing. Right now you need to get some rest. But I have this massive headache. I will get you some medicine. Brian walked into the bathroom. Where do you keep your headache medicine? He yelled from inside. With the other generic medicines, she tried not to yell as it increased her headache. Brian came back, but without anything. Looks like you are out of medicines. I will get some for you, just try to relax. Janet nodded, and Brian left the penthouse. God, she cried due to the headache while her phone rang loudly. Hello, she answered irritatingly. Is this Janet Crane, founder of High Seas? A British voice came from the other end of the phone. Yes, who are you? My name is Callum Holdsworth, and I am an investigative journalist. Would it be possible for you to answer some of my questions, Miss Crane? Janet tried to think what she should say to this man, but Callum took her silence as an agreement. For how long have you and Brian Watson been dating? What? When did you come across his profile, and is there any proof that you actually met him using your website or app? Because honestly, I think your story is bollocks and you just created it to get people's attention. Suddenly, Janet's headache disappeared and anxiety took her over. This reporter had just spoken the truth. Miss Crane, I am still waiting for you to answer. Janet did not want to talk to him anymore. I am quite busy right now and you can make an appointment for an interview later. Goodbye. Quickly, she disconnected the phone and her hangover and buzz vanished into thin air. Kitty was on the phone with Bilal. She was informing him about the latest update between Janet and Brian. She said what? Bilal asked, screaming over the phone. Exactly what I told you. She really likes him, Bilal, and now I am worried about her. Do you want me to talk to him? I can ask if he is interested in Janet. No, I don't want you to do that. In fact, it would be best if the two of them sort things out themselves. Kitty made it clear that she did not want anybody else to step in. All right, but do let me know if you need my help. I will. So now your membership numbers are up and Janet and Brian are going steady. Where is our holiday that you promised? Bilal asked, reminding Kitty of her promise. Not now, Bilal. I just told you how tensed Janet is. You know I can't leave her like this. I guess. But remember, you owe me a holiday. Bilal's voice was smiling. I do, baby, and I will make it up to you. Wait, somebody is calling me. All right, I love you, Bilal said, hanging up. Love you too. Kitty answered the other call. Hello? Hi, is this Miss Kitty, personal assistant of Janet Crane, the founder of High Seas? Callum's voice asked so many questions in one go. Yes, who is this? My name is Callum Holdsworth, and I am an investigative reporter. I have reasons to believe that the romantic story of your owner and her boyfriend is fake. Callum's words froze every drop of blood in Kitty's body. Are you there, Miss Kitty? Callum inquired. What are you talking about? Kitty tried to put on a brave face. Callum was a seasoned player of this game of poker, and so he used his much experience bluff. Oh, come on, Miss Kitty. I know what you and Miss Crane were up to. The numbers were low, and so your company needed a miracle, and you found it in an Englishman. Kitty was now convinced that this man knew everything. But how? She had no clue. By the way, if you don't mind me asking, why did you choose a British guy? You could have gone for something much more exotic, like a Middle Eastern or maybe an Asian. Even Indians are quite popular these days. So why did you decide to get her an English boyfriend? Was that to appeal to the American masses?
This is a ridiculous story. Everybody knows Janet met Brian on the High Seas website. Funny, because when I talked to Miss Crane earlier, she said she used the app to meet Brian Watson and not the website. Are you sure you have the right information, Miss Kitty?
How does it matter whether she used the app or the site? Their story is the first success of High Seas, and so I can understand how some reporters like you might try to capitalize on it. Kitty tried to play the game of bluff with Callum. Nice try, child. But if that is true, can you show me the logs of their interactions on the website or app? You know, whatever they used to meet? I am sure you must have kept those logs safe and sound like the Holy Grail.
Kitty knew that no logs were available because there was no interaction. Janet and Brian only created their profiles and did nothing else. But now this reporter was peeling off layer after layers of their planted story.
I don't have time to waste with the likes of you, and so I suggest you come to us with substantial proof if you have any. Goodbye. Kitty disconnected the phone and rushed out of her house. Kitty had called Janet at Rebecca's office. I need to talk to you. Janet seemed in a hurry. Is this about that reporter? Kitty asked. He called you too? Yeah. The son of a bitch knows everything. The conversation was now on the speaker. But how is this possible? Rebecca wondered. Nobody other than us and Brian know about it. Not even our tech team. Then how can he know? Rebecca took a brief pause. Do you guys think Brian told him? No! Both Kitty and Janet said unanimously. They trusted Brian and knew that he would never do such a thing. Great. Then who talked? Because that reporter is telling the truth. It could be possible that he is bluffing, Kitty said. How did he figure out all of this then? Janet wondered. It's really simple, actually, Kitty explained. You just need a wicked brain to put it all together. Most people believe our story because they want to. But this guy is an asshole, and so he must have been looking for an angle. Unfortunately, he found one. And what an angle it was, Rebecca said. Janet pulled the focus of the group towards the priority. Right now, we need to know what we should do with him. Stop all communications with him. He cannot prove anything without talking to any of us, Rebecca advised her friends. Next, we need to find out where he is bluffing or if he has a credible source. So what, stop answering his calls? Kitty looked at Rebecca. Well, that won't be possible in today's age. He could use different numbers to call you, and there are many other ways to reach a person. So what you need to do is stick with just 2 words. No comment. Kitty and Janet liked this advice. This way, they didn't have to worry about this British reporter sandbagging them, and they were giving an official and safe statement. Understood. Anything else? Kitty asked Rebecca. We need to find out more about this asshole reporter and you. She turned to Janet. Talk to Brian and ask him if he knows anything about this reporter. The ladies agreed and the meeting adjourned. Janet reached home and found Brian in the kitchen. Just one look of Janet's face made him smile. I'm making something to eat. Are you hungry, Janet? Brian, we need to talk, Janet said in a very serious manner and sat down on the sofa. Brian could see Janet was really serious, and so he left everything and sat beside her. What is it, Janet? The end.